Hi guys and welcome to my channel, Criminal Mind with Normandi. I'm a South African true crime addict. I absolutely never stop. I watch it every single moment I have available in each day. The moment I wake up in the morning, I have to switch on one of three YouTube channels. I love Bailey Sarian, Kendall Ray, and then I recently discovered Daniel Kirsty as well. They are my absolute inspirations and motivation to do this myself. Before I go to bed, I also have to have the absolute necessities. I'll show you what they are right now. Tell me if any of you do this as well, because I'm starting to think that I'm a loony bin. I go to bed with my trusty pair of tweezers. This is for when I get anxious while I'm listening to true crime. I can just squeeze it like this. And then the other thing I need to have is my earphones. So people that know me very well would know not to buy me expensive pairs of earphones because they always end up looking like this or like this. My husband tries to fix them all the time, but it only lasts for about 2 days. So currently I didn't order new ones yet, and I am on this pair. Proudly owned by my 3-year-old little girl. She did get suspicious once, but I managed to convince her that I also own a pair exactly like hers. Okay, so please just bear with me. This is my first video that I'm doing, and I'm trying to sit off to one side of the camera because I'm going to try really hard to insert some pictures over there, because that's what I usually like to see when I watch videos. I always sit and wait and say, okay, telling me about this person, please show me what he or she looks like, because I just get into the cases way more when I actually see the people they are talking about. So today we are going to talk about Moses Sithole, who really is South Africa's Ted Bundy. Moses Sithole is the most infamous serial killer in South Africa up to date. The man himself claimed to have killed almost 80 people, but only 38 cases of that could be confirmed. Still, in the span of only 1 year, killing 38 people is quite a record. Now, South Africa, despite being the absolute beautiful country that it is and everything that we do have, more often than not doesn't make it onto international maps of any kind, be it crime or anything else. Basically, the only big thing that we had recently was the Oscar Pistorius trial, and that's only because Oscar is an international Olympian. I think that's the only reason that gained so much fame, and it died just as soon after as well. So, just to give you some information about South Africa, for those of you that's not really familiar, South Africa is no stranger to crime at all, and I'll give you a few statistics that I have here that we get from the government every few months. But for that, I'm going to have to look down because I can't remember the numbers off by heart. Like I just said, in this 3-month period, that is 92 days. And this is what we get from the government every few months, just to update us on our crime rate. South Africa has a total of 6,123 murders for a 92-day period, and with another 5,194 attempted murders for that same period. We have 30,666 drug-related crimes. Then we have another 5,372 robberies. For those of you who don't know the difference between robberies and burglaries, I didn't really know. A burglar or a robbery is when somebody takes something from you with force. So they'll hold a gun to your head and say, well, if you don't give me your property, I will shoot you, I will hurt you in some way. And then burglaries is when people get into your house when you're away on holiday. So you never really know, you get home to an empty house and you have to phone insurance. And this is a staggering almost 36,000 cases of burglary in 92 days. I am not great at maths, but I suspect that is quite a few cases every day. Now let's start with Moses Sithole. Sithole was also known as the ABC murderer, and that is because that was mainly to do with the areas that he worked in. He started in Atteridgeville. This is an informal settlement just west of Pretoria. Pretoria is one of the capitals of South Africa. So that's where he started his operations or his killing spree. From there, he moved on to Boksburg. I used to stay in Boksburg for my whole life when I was a little girl. So just to think that he was busy operating there while I was still little just gives me goosebumps. But he moved on to Boksburg. That's to the east of South Africa. And then he ended in Cleveland, which is a suburb of Johannesburg, which is also quite a hub in South Africa. Cape Town, Johannesburg, for those of you that know a little bit about South Africa. So that was the areas that he mainly operated in, and that's what made him the ABC murderer. Now, Moses was born on the 17th of November 1964 in a township or an informal settlement, Vosloorus, that's close to Boksburg. He was born to mother Sophie and father Simon. For those of you that don't know what an informal settlement or a township is, it's usually in a poorer area in a neighborhood, and it's basically homemade houses. People just pick a piece of land and they build their own little house on there. Now, his father passed away when he was still a little boy, around the age of 6 years old, but I really couldn't confirm the exact age. His mother couldn't cope with taking care of him and his 4 siblings anymore, so one day she just upped and went to the nearest police station and she left her children there. Although before taking them into the police station, she made it very clear to them not to tell anybody that she was their mother. So she left them there, and eventually they did go to an orphanage in Benoni, that's quite close to Boksburg, and then later up they ended up transferring them to an orphanage in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, after staying in this orphanage in KwaZulu-Natal for a couple of years, Moses did end up running away, claiming that he was mistreated in this orphanage. He did run away back to Vosloorus, taking a train to go and live with his brother Patrick. I don't know how long he stayed with Patrick, but eventually Patrick left to go and stay in Venda. Now, Venda is also an informal settlement, but this borders close to Zimbabwe. So Moses was left alone in Vosloorus and ended up selling Patrick's house. I don't know how he managed that, or if he was of age at that point, or if you even need all the deeds and papers and stuff. But at the end of the day, Moses ended up selling Patrick's house without his permission. Now, Moses ended up working a few menial jobs on farms or at gold mines in Johannesburg, and he was really believed to have been a ladies' man. People loved him, his community loved him. He often helped children out on streets, or he would even return runaway kids back to their parents, helping them and just charming the ladies as far as he went. In 1987, Moses committed his first sexual crime. He raped a girl, and then in 1988, Moses entered into a relationship with 17-year-old Sibungile Nkosi, but that relationship didn't last long at all because Moses abused and mistreated her, so the relationship ended soon after it started. Then in 1989, Moses struck again, raping another girl by the name of Buyizwa, and he also threatened her with a panga or a machete. Now, this is a huge knife. It basically looks like it's on steroids. He threatened her with this, threatening her not to tell anybody or just to keep quiet. He didn't want to hear about it anymore, and that he would save her life if she didn't. He would spare her life if she didn't talk about that ever again. Months after this, Buyiswa was standing in her place of work one day, and she actually saw Sithole standing outside. She phoned the police immediately, and they arrived. And get this, they actually made the two of them sit next to each other in the back of a police car on their way to the station for questioning. On their way to the police station, Moses swore at Buyiswa the whole time, telling her that he should have actually killed her when he had a chance to do so. At the end of the day, Moses Sithole actually did end up spending 6 years in prison for this crime he committed in 1989. During his stay in prison, Moses actually met another woman named Martha, or as we'd say in South African, Martha, because that's just the way it is. He actually met Martha while she was there visiting relatives of her in prison. This is an outstanding combination, an outstanding family. She was there visiting relatives of her own. They eventually started writing letters to each other and became good friends. Then in 1993, Moses was actually released from prison for good behavior. He did his time. He now went to go and live with Martha and her mother and father in Pretoria. Now, in 1994, and this is where the sport actually starts, Marta was 5 months pregnant with his daughter when Moses lured 18-year-old Maria to her place of death, when he actually offered her a position at his foundation, Youth Against Human Abuse. To no surprise, this actually never existed, but this is what he used on all of his victims after. He looked for people that was really desperate for a job, and he lured them to their death. After killing Maria, raping her, and then strangling her with his own hands, Moses wrote 3 messages on Maria's body, and this was believed to have been for law enforcement, like a little clue or some sick, I don't know, something sick that went on in his mind. He wrote on her body, "She is a bitch. I am not fighting with you, please." And the third message was that we will have to stay here as long as you don't understand. Each time he killed, this was a form of revenge for Moses. It was revenge on Buyiswe, and this was the girl that initially reported the rape and ended him up 6 years in prison. By that fall, 4 women had been found, one in Pretoria and then another one in Boksburg. That one was believed to have been Sithole's mistress, Amanda. He actually even attended her funeral, but at that stage, police already arrested another man for the murder of Amanda. Months after his daughter's birth, in December of 1994, Moses and Marta separated. They went their own way, and this left Moses homeless. So he slept in train stations from there on out in Boksburg, Pretoria, and more women were found each day. Another woman here, another woman there, and they were always found close by to the railway stations. All of Sithole's victims were black women that really took care of themselves, and they were all in the range between 18 and 40, all looking for jobs, taking care of themselves, just looking to make a way in their lives. People could not fathom what was going on around them, and South Africa's first profiler, Mickey Pistorius, was assigned to this case. Now, she believed that more than one person was responsible for the recent deaths in Pretoria and Boksburg. With this said, Mickey invited retired FBI profiler Robert Ressler to come to South Africa and have a look at her evidence and just revise her file and give some information from his side and his thoughts on this case. Ressler spent about a week in South Africa going through this case with her, and he largely agreed with Pistorius, and even on her prediction that the killer would at some point contact the media about this case. There was such a hype around these murders that former President Nelson Mandela actually went to the site of where these bodies were found, and he made a plea to the public, to the media, to everybody to please just come forward with some information regarding this case, help out the police, to let's just please find this criminal. To top this all off, and this is something that I forgot to mention earlier, Moses would sometimes even call the families of his victims, and he would tease and taunt them about the murders, saying that he knew where this victim was or how she died, and that he did this, and families just never had the resources to track him or to find out who this man really was. So he quite enjoyed taunting the families of the victims. Then on the 3rd of October 1995, he actually phoned the local newspaper. Finally, he made the move. He phoned the newspaper. He claimed to be a man called Joseph Mokoena, and that he was actually the person that everybody had been looking for this whole time. He went into a lengthy interview and then claiming responsibility for almost all of the murders. Sithole then went on to tell the newspaper, or not Sithole, Joseph, as he pretended to be, told the newspapers that he actually hated women, and this is why he committed the crimes, because it was a woman who put him in jail after falsely accusing him of rape, and that is why he ended up in jail for 6 years. He hated women, and that is why he was going to kill far and wide as long as they let him be. And to prove to them that this was not a false call, that he actually was the real deal, he disclosed some information about victims that had not been found yet. So he gave them all the information. He told them where to go. There were still victims out there that the police didn't find yet. and that he just gave them all the information on this. Police eventually put two and two together, and they saw that every time a victim phoned a man for a job, they went missing shortly after that. They eventually traced this number, and it ended up to be Sithole's sister's number. After realizing that Sithole's history actually matched all the information given by this Joseph Mokoena in the interview, police went ahead and announced that Moses Sithole was wanted for all of these murders, and his image was released to the press. Moses Sithole almost immediately phoned his ex-brother-in-law, saying that he really needed a gun to protect himself against the media, against the police. His brother-in-law said that's fine and that he'd meet him at his place of work, a factory in Benoni, the very next day. But what Moses didn't know is that his brother-in-law actually phoned the police directly after that call. Police went ahead and planted undercover officer Francis Mulovetse as a security guard the next day at this factory. Moses Sithole came up to the factory and asked Mulovetse to see his brother-in-law, thinking that he's coming to pick up the gun. The other security guards that was not in on this story actually recognized Moses Sithole, and they shouted at Mulovetse to get this guy because he's the criminal that everybody was looking for. Moses immediately he became suspicious and he took off running. Mulovetse actually chased Moses into an alleyway where he was cornered. He then told Moses that he was a police officer, law enforcement, and he gave two warning shots. He fired two warning shots. Moses then attacked him with an axe, whereafter he shot Moses in the stomach and in the leg, and he was taken to hospital. He was arrested and taken to hospital, where he stayed in a critical condition for 2 days. After his recovery in hospital, Moses just bluntly refused to make a statement unless he could see a female officer. After seeing a female officer, he went into great lengths and details about 10 of these murders while actually masturbating in front of this officer. Sithole was formally charged with 38 of these murders. He eventually agreed to do an interview with another prisoner with the premise that the interview be sold afterwards and that his share of the money would go to his daughter. During his interview with another inmate in prison, he actually confessed to 29 of these murders, saying that he got his biggest thrill from watching the victims' eyes bulge out as he strangled them and as they died. Another curveball came that when at his trial, Moses Sithole actually denied any involvement in any murders at all, saying that the police forced him to confess to all of the murders. On the 4th of December 1997, Moses Sithole was actually found guilty of 38 counts of murder, 40 counts of rape, and 6 counts of robbery. Moses was not given life sentences. He was sentenced to 2,410 years in prison, only eligible for parole after 930 years served. Moses is currently serving his sentence in C Max block in the Pretoria Central Jail. This is the highest security block in all of South Africa. So in conclusion, Moses' whole modus operandi was to offer females job, black victims in specific, black victims between the ages of 18 and 40 females. He would offer them a job at his fake company, then take them on a train trip, and then tell them that they had to walk over a field and that's just a shortcut to his office. Once in this field, he would tell them that he was hurt by a woman, so he was going to hurt and rape them unless they could defeat him. Obviously, the woman wasn't strong enough to overpower him, so he would tie them up, rape them, and strangle them with pieces of their own clothing, be it belts or their bag handles or their bras or their panties, anything he'd use to strangle them. And sometimes this rape and death would even occur on top of an old body that was lying there that hasn't been discovered yet. So they were killed on top of other dead, decomposing bodies. That brings us to the end of a short version of the Moses Sithole case that didn't receive nearly as much media attention as it should have. If If you are interested in true crime and would like to hear more stories with me weekly, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. See you later. Bye.